Yes, guys, welcome to a brand new presentation. My name is Conan, and today we're going to be talking about how you can go grocery shopping while still being on a budget. So, without any further ado, let's just jump straight into it. The reason why I'm making today's presentation is because the holidays are behind us, and most people usually during this time of year of like November, Thanksgiving, December, Christmas time, people spend a lot of money buying gifts, buying food, and just like it's a spending season for a lot of people. So now, as we enter the new year, 2024, it's January now. A lot of people are trying to like cut down on their expenses. And one way that you can go about doing that is by cutting down on your grocery expenses, because I see so many people go to the grocery store and they just buy random foods that realistically speaking they don't even need to eat. So I thought, why not show you guys exactly what I buy on a typical grocery trip to give you guys some inspiration and some ideas on how you can still eat your favorite foods, still eat healthy while actually like saving a bunch of money in the long run. So let's just start straight into it. Starting with the protein. So protein is one of, if not the most important macronutrients. As you guys know, it helps you build the muscle that you're looking for, while helping you stay nice and full as you are dieting or trying to build more muscle. So a couple different sources of protein, as you guys should be aware of, are chicken, and this means any type of chicken, right? Usually speaking, when it comes to the protein sources, any fattier type of cut, whether it comes to the chicken or the beef, the fattier it is, usually the cheaper it is as well. So if you guys are on like a super strict budget, I would always opt for like the fattier cuts of the meat. So when it comes to chicken, for example, chicken breast is usually the leanest source or the leanest cut of the chicken. So that's usually like the most expensive one, right? Whereas chicken thighs, especially with the bone on and the skin on, are usually somewhat a lot cheaper. Chicken drumsticks are a lot cheaper. Chicken legs or chicken quarters, especially if they have the bone on and the skin on as well, they're usually a lot cheaper. Now, with that said though, guys, when it does come with the skin on and the bones on, you may have to do some work when you buy them. You gotta take the skin off, obviously, and you gotta take the bones out as well, obviously. But usually speaking as well, the fattier cuts of meats are also the tastier ones. So for example, chicken breast usually tends to be pretty dry for a lot of people, especially if you don't know how to like cook it properly. Whereas chicken thighs with the skin on, I mean, that skin adds a lot more just like fats in general, right? And fats are really, really tasty, especially if you bake it properly. It just adds a lot more just like flavor to it in general. So that'll be that when it comes to the chicken breast. What I do personally, as you guys can see here, these are images that I shot while I went to the grocery store yesterday, but I get the chicken split breast. Now, these are always available at my grocery store. I go to Joe V Smart Shop by HEB, but you guys can go to any grocery store. Most grocery stores do have like sales on all the time, but for some reason, this chicken split breast at the grocery store that I go to always seems to be on sale. If you guys look a bit closer, it's only $1.77 per pound. So in total, this was $8 for that entire thing. I got two of them, which was super, super cool. And then on top of that, I got the 93.7 ground turkey. And now the 93.7 is a pretty lean cut. You can definitely go for the 90.10 or the 85.15 or even like the 80.20 cut as well. You don't have to go for a ground turkey. You can get the ground beef as well. I actually found that at my grocery store, the ground turkey is actually cheaper than the ground beef. So I opted for that. And then I opted for some eggs as well. These eggs were super, super cheap as well. These are only $1.17 per dozen, which was really cool. So I got three of them as well. So that is everything that I got at the grocery store when it comes to my protein intake. And now again, these are just some ideas. You don't have to eat these necessarily. You can opt for fish, whether it's salmon, usually the frozen fish as well in the frozen aisle section. Not like the breaded ones, but like the actual fish that's just frozen. It's actually pretty cheap as well, whether it's the tilapia or the basa fish, or there's a couple other different fishes, but most of them are pretty lean as well. You can definitely go for the beef as well. You're going to get ground beef or actual steak. Steak usually is a bit more expensive. Pork as well. Pork loin is a great source. And then any dairy products as well, whether it's like whole milk, fat-free milk, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, all these dairy products as well in the dairy section are also phenomenal sources of protein. Now, the reason why I don't get dairy products is because I found myself actually to be pretty sensitive to lactose. I'm not necessarily lactose intolerant, although I do have a pretty hard time digesting most dairy products. So I'm good with cheese. Cheese is totally fine with me. But when it comes to drinking actual milk, milk just messes me up. So I'm not even willing to risk it. And in my typical diets, I just don't really enjoy having much dairy anyway. So I just opt to stay away from that. So those are some ideas when it comes to your protein intake. Now, secondly, moving on to the carbs. So a couple different carb sources that you can choose from are either fruits, vegetables, whole grains, rice, and pasta. So fruits and vegetables should be non-negotiable. You can either get them at the actual fruits and vegetable aisle, which usually is like the first thing you see as you enter the grocery store, right, for most of them, or you can get them frozen as well. Usually if you pick the frozen ones, they tend to be picked at peak ripeness, so you don't have to necessarily wait for them to ripen up because they're peaked when they're super ripe as well. And what's so cool about frozen fruit as well and vegetables is that they're not seasonal, meaning that you can get strawberries year round, right? Whereas in like a typical calendar year, most strawberries are usually only in season during the summer months, right? Same thing with like other fruits and vegetables, like pumpkin usually is only in season during like the fall time and all that other stuff. I don't know much about any other fruits and vegetables, but for the most part, they should be available regularly year round, right? But certain ones are seasonal, which also means that if they are seasonal, for example, strawberries, you may notice that they're a lot cheaper in the summertime because they're in season and there's a bunch of them. Whereas in the wintertime, when they're maybe a bit harder to harvest or maybe to just get access to, they may be a bit more expensive, right? But I found that most frozen fruits and vegetables are pretty much the same price year round. So I always opt for the frozen mixed berry blend. So these are like strawberries, blueberries. Sometimes I get them with like the raspberries and blackberries as well. These are super cheap, only 97 cents per, I think, 284 grams, which is really nice. Per serving, I usually only grab around 100 grams per day. So I grab a couple of those to last me a week. I also grab their frozen vegetables as well. I get the California blend. This is basically a mix of vegetables, which includes broccoli, carrots, and cauliflower as well. And again, I don't have to worry about it being in season or not because they're all frozen. And this one was also pretty cheap, 5 pounds for $5, which is phenomenal. So I add this to all my meals. On top of that, the yams or sweet potatoes. Actually, really funny story here. So I used to work at a farmer's market and I always used to get the two words confused, whether it was called a yam or a sweet potato. What I learned, at least, and people always correct me here, like I always think that these are called yams, like the actual orange potato, but a lot of people correct me and say it's a sweet potato. So I don't really know exactly if it's a yam or sweet potato, but I think most people just like view them as sweet potato. So just for convenience sake, I'll say sweet potato. Okay, fine. So I got the sweet potato, and these I think are also in season as well. As you guys can tell, they're only 80 cents per pound. So that is super, super cheap. I got like 10 of these and they're like actually like really big, and it only cost me about $4, which was amazing. Same thing with bananas. Bananas are super affordable as well year round. They're usually around like a couple cents per pound. So that's really, really cool. That's like my go-to fruit. And then for the whole grains, I opted for some quick oats as well, $1.25. So as you guys can tell so far, just by being mindful and picking certain fruits and vegetables over others, you can definitely save a lot more money in the long run instead of just like aimlessly spending your money on just like random fruits and vegetables that maybe aren't in season. And sometimes it's also a good idea to maybe just compare the two. Like let's say you're really debating whether you should get the fresh blueberries or the frozen blueberries. Well, all you have to do is simply go to the frozen aisle section, look at the frozen blueberries, look how much they are, and then compare it to how much the actual normal ones are. Most likely, the frozen ones are cheaper, so I always opt for the frozen ones. What's so cool about them as well is that they last quite some time. I usually go through them pretty quickly, but let's say you want to go travel, I mean, you can still leave them in your freezer and they'll be totally fine as well. Whereas with the actual strawberries, they usually get rotten after like a week or two of them sitting in your fridge, right? So just a lot less hassle if you get the frozen ones. But yeah, that'll be that when it comes to the carbs. Now let's talk about the fats. Now, a lot of people do neglect their fats, and a lot of people do get their fats from, let's say, the not so good sources. So they usually opt for like the junk food, whether it's the brownies, the cookies, what else is there? The chips, all this junk food, right? Which, I mean, yes, it's a source of fat, but probably not the best sources of fat. And plus, these are also really expensive sources of fats, like the chips, the ice cream, the donuts, all this stuff, right? It's like it's not cheap necessarily. Whereas if you opt for like the actual whole natural sources of fat, like think of like your nuts, your nut butters, peanut butter, almond butter, cashew butter, your seeds, chia seeds, your oils, olive oil, your avocados. These are phenomenal. I have so many. I love avocados. And your fatty fish as well, like your salmon, like all these sources. You can even include like whole eggs into them as well. I consider eggs as like a good source of fats due to the yolk. So all these sources are more of like natural sources. And usually if you opt for these are usually a lot cheaper. As you guys can tell by the pictures that I took at the grocery store, this peanut butter, 600 grams. I'm not too sure, but it was only $2.74, which will last me honestly a couple weeks, to be honest, or 18 ounces. Yeah, this will definitely last me a couple weeks. So it was around 15 cents per ounce. And then when it comes to the avocados, at my grocery store, and I found this to be quite lucky for myself, but usually all the other grocery stores I go to, the avocados usually are pretty expensive. Whereas at this specific grocery store, at Joe V's, they're actually super cheap, like all the time. They're only 60 cents each. I grab 7 at a time. I eat 1 avocado a day. So that's super, super cheap, around $3 for avocados for the entire week. Whereas in normal stores like Whole Foods or any other grocery stores, they're usually like $1 per avocado or something ridiculous like that, right? And so as you can tell, also picking the right grocery store definitely really helps. You don't necessarily always have to shop at like a Whole Foods just because it's considered like a healthy grocery store. You can definitely still get your groceries either at this grocery store that I go to, or you can even go to like Walmart, Target, HEB as well if you're in Texas. Those are all options when it comes to getting your groceries. So the total of my entire grocery haul. So I took a couple of pictures here. That's basically everything I got. So I got my protein, I got my carbs, and I got my fruits and vegetables, obviously, as well. And I got my fats as well. So my weekly average when I go grocery shopping is around $50 per week. So around $250 per month. And this specific grocery bill was a bit more expensive because I made the mistake of getting a lot more sweet potato than I anticipated. So I actually got, I think, up to like 10 pounds of sweet potato. That added up to being like $8 instead of the anticipated like $4 or $3 that I usually would get them at. So my specific grocery bill for this specific grocery haul was $57. But on average, I spend around $50 on groceries. I get everything I need, all the essentials. And so that's what I do personally. Am I saying that you have to do this? No, I'm not saying you have to do this, but I'll definitely give you some more recommendations towards the end of today's presentation as well. Now, when it comes to the meal prep, so obviously you've gotten your groceries, you got everything you need. Now, how do I actually prep this? So what I do personally is I'll just batch cook everything at once. So I go grocery shopping only once a week on a Sunday, usually on my rest day, and then I'll batch cook all the foods that I buy on that specific day right after as well. So usually takes me around in total of like driving to the grocery store, getting my groceries, driving back, prepping all my foods, having that ready. Usually takes me up to like 2 to 3 hours out of my day, which could be some time for most people, but especially if you do like on like a weekend when you do have some added free time, that's 2 to 3 hours that you spend getting your groceries and prepping your food ahead of time for the week will save you so many more hours down the line throughout the week from Monday through Friday, right? So I really do think that spending these 2 to 3 hours of just getting everything ready will save you so much more time and will pay dividends throughout the entire week. So I've always done this for the longest time. It's worked for me. It helps me. So what I do is I'll cook everything at once. So I cook my chicken breast and my yams, which is usually the things that require oven time. So I put those in the oven at around 400 degrees Fahrenheit for around 45 minutes, depending on your oven. I'm not sure if some ovens are stronger or not, but for me, usually around 45 minutes, and they always turn out perfect every single time. And then I'll put them into some Tupperware containers, as you guys can tell by the left picture here. And then I just store it in the fridge, and they last me for about a week. And now when it comes to the specific meals, so as I mentioned, I batch cook everything, I put it into the fridge, and then as I am hungry, you can definitely take the next step further and actually batch cook your meals and actually separate it the day off into individual separate meals. So you can have like your breakfast, your dinner, and your lunch as well, all separated into Tupperware containers. I usually don't do that. I just kind of like make it as I'm hungry. So here are some meal ideas and meal inspirations that I kind of like eat on a frequently week-to-week basis. So for breakfast, usually my pre-workout meal, I'll have the yam, which is the picture on the left. I'll have the yam with the chicken, with a banana on the side, and some peanut butter on top as well. I add some salt and cinnamon as well, but those are just some things that I always have in the house. I don't really consider those as being part of like my grocery bill because I mean, I buy them in bulk and they last me for literally months. So yeah, I added that, and then I'll go to the gym, workouts, post-workout meal. I'll have my lunch, which usually consists of some yam, more chicken breast, veggies, and avocado. And now for dinner, third meal, pretty much the same one. Sometimes I may switch out the yam for some rice if I buy some rice at the grocery store. This specific week I did not. I just kept it to the yams or the sweet potato, and then I'll have some chicken breast. If I don't have the chicken breast, I may opt for some pork as well sometimes, or some lean ground beef, or some turkey that I bought as well. And then I'll have some more veggies and another avocado. If I don't want avocado, I usually have some olive oil on the side as well, just to add some more healthy fats to the meal. Now my fourth meal, which is on the bottom right, are some eggs, oatmeal, and the frozen fruit on top. So those are all the 4 meals that I would typically eat throughout the day. Definitely feel free to add or subtract certain things from it. I usually just like to keep it pretty consistent throughout the week because, and the reason why I do this, the reason why I keep my meals the same, why I keep most of my food the same throughout the week is because this saves me so much mental fatigue and so much brain power throughout the week of like having to think of like, oh, what should my breakfast be for today? Or, oh, what should my lunch be today? Or, oh, what should my dinner be today? Because I know literally every single day I have my own meal plan that you guys have as well. I have my own meal plan and I just literally follow the meal plan the way it's listed out. There's no guesswork going on. I don't have to think about as soon as I wake up, like, oh my goodness, what am I going to eat for breakfast? Or, oh, do I have to run to the grocery store to grab this certain ingredients that I want to eat for dinner tonight? It's like, no, none of that. I buy everything that I need for the entire week on a Sunday. I got all my food for the rest of the week. I got it all batch cooked in my fridge, and I just grab it as I'm hungry and I'll eat it right away. Now, to conclude today's presentation, here are a couple things for you to keep in mind and take away from this PowerPoint. So number one, go into the grocery store and have a list with you. So what's so cool if you guys are part of the VIP program and the meal plans that I've given you specifically, at the bottom of your meal plan actually gives you a custom shopping list as well. So you can literally just like take a screenshot of it or print it out with you and take it with you to the grocery store. Because if you go to the grocery store without a plan, without a list, without being prepared, you're just going to end up spending so much more money on useless things that you definitely don't need. Like you're going to see some random deals, you're going to see some random things that may be super appealing to you, right? It could be some special deals on like a cookie or special deals on like this rice or this pasta, whatever it could be. But if you know it's not part of your list, then you just don't get it regardless, right? And of course, you can make some substitutions. Like let's say you usually would get the yam, but the yam is a bit more expensive than it usually is. And you see some other source of carb, maybe some white potatoes, they're on sale instead. Then you can definitely go ahead and do that. And I personally do that as well. Like if I notice that maybe certain fruits and vegetables that I will typically get are a bit more expensive, then I may opt for getting some different fruits and vegetables. Same thing with my protein. If the chicken breast that I usually get is not on sale anymore, I may opt for maybe some chicken thighs instead, or maybe opt for some chicken drumsticks, whatever it may be, right? So definitely allow yourself to have some flexibility as you are walking in the grocery store and as you kind of like see deals in front of you. But it's good to just always come prepared and have a list with you. The third tip here is do not go while you're hungry. This is a big and also a really common mistake. A lot of people will go to the grocery store while feeling kind of hungry, and they just end up buying a lot more foods than they will typically have. And when you're hungry, any food sounds tasty to you. Like you'll look at a bag of chips, which normally you don't really have a big craving for, but you may pick it up anyway because you went to the grocery store feeling really hungry, and you tell yourself that, oh, I may have a couple chips when I come back. Or you may buy some cookies, or you may buy some random thing that you would typically not eat, and that's because you went hungry. So try to eat a meal before you go grocery shopping, or just try to like not go while you're hungry. Here's another tip that a lot of people don't talk about, but try to only go to the grocery store once a week. Now, the reason for this is because for myself personally, this saves me a bunch of time in the long run because I do not want to be going to the grocery store numerous times a week. Like if I go to the grocery store, like I just make sure like I plan it out. It's like a big event for me. It's a big trip for me because I know that after the grocery store shopping is done, I have to batch cook the meals and stuff. And I know it's going to like take some time out of my day. So I just prefer going once a week. I schedule out time in my calendar to actually go. I don't just go on a whim. I don't just like randomly decide on a Tuesday night that, oh, it's time to go grocery shopping. Like, no, I have stuff to do. I have meetings, I have calls, I have all this stuff. And I'm assuming you guys are busy as well. So try to only go once a week. The second reason why is because the more often you go, more than likely, the more often or the more likely you are to spend on food, right? It's like if you go 3 times a week compared to once a week, the chance of you spending more when you go 3 times a week are a lot higher compared to if you only go once a week, right? If there's always like food around you, there's like different deals around you, you're going to end up just like buying a lot more foods than you would typically have had you had only gone once a week. Now stick to the basics. As you guys can tell, I did not buy any junk food. I did not buy any chips. And there's a number of reasons for that. The first reason is because if it's not in sight, it's not in mind. And there's a lot more friction now because in my house right now, in my cupboard, in my fridge, there's nothing, like the only stuff in my fridge is my prepped sweet potato and chicken. Like that's the only thing in my fridge. So the temptation for me to cheat on my diet or to have like an unhealthy meal or to have some weird snacks are going to be very slim because if it's not in sight, it's definitely not in mind. It's like, I can't remember the last time I was like, oh, I really, like, I'm tempted to have like a cheat meal right now. Like, no, I open my fridge, I see my chicken breast, I see my sweet potato. I'm like, okay, cool, let me have this. Whereas if I really wanted something, I would just think about all the steps that I'd have to take in order to actually make that happen. So let's say I go downstairs right now and I want to have some Oreos. Well, first of all, I don't have any Oreos. So that's a big issue, right? And that's, I really insisted on having some Oreos. Well, I'd have to go into my car. I'd have to drive 20 minutes to the grocery store. I'd have to find a parking spot. I'd have to physically walk into the grocery store. And then I'd have to actually look for the Oreos. I'd have to go to the till. I'd have to talk to the person that works there. I'd have to pay my money to buy the Oreos and then drive all the way back. And then finally I have the Oreos. So like an hour later, I finally get to have my Oreos. And it's like, for me, realistically speaking, no matter how much I want the Oreos, like it's just not worth it to me. Like I'm not willing to spend an entire hour just to get like some Oreos. Like no chance. I'd rather just have the meals that I have right now and just stick to it, right? A couple other tips is shop in season, like I talked about. Foods that are in season are usually a lot cheaper. Buy foods in bulk when you can as well. This may not seem cheaper in the short term, like in the moment, but in the long term, like buying like your seasonings in bulk, like the salt that I have lasts me honestly up to a year. The cinnamon that I have lasts me up to a year. Like all these stuff that I use frequently, the honey I use or something like that. I buy in bulk because it lasts me literally up to a year, and that's not like a reoccurring expense either, right? And now one final tip is try to buy store brand names. So when you go to Walmart, Great Value is their store brand name, but most grocery stores and most stores in general have their store brand names, and these are usually a lot cheaper. Like the general brands, these are a lot cheaper as well. To me, they usually taste the same. Like for example, gourmet rice versus some store brand rice. Like rice is rice to me at the end of the day, right? And especially if you buy their frozen vegetables, like it's all the same, whether it's made from Great Value or some other quote unquote healthy brands, like it's all the same. And especially, and this usually should not be an issue if you buy like your fruits and vegetables like that are like not frozen. Like if you just buy them whole, like there's no store brands avocados. Like there's just avocados and avocado, right? And same thing with like chicken. Like chicken is chicken. That is everything that I have for you guys in today's presentation. So hopefully you guys did take something out of today's video, and hopefully you guys can leave today's video saving some money on your groceries. And with that out of the way, I'll let you guys go. If you guys do have any questions for me, as always, just let me know, and I will speak to y'all soon. Peace.